And we're live. Hello, everybody. Welcome, BEEMANDEV live show BLS010. Today, show and tell with Alex Okrushko. Alex, welcome to the show.
Hey. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, man. It's great to see you here. It seems unlikely that anybody doesn't know who you are, but for those who don't, that maybe check this video in 2 years. And could you briefly introduce yourself?
So I'm Alex Okrushko. I'm currently a software engineer at Google, working on the Firebase console. Part of the NgRx team, and what else? In-depth dev, and
Yep.
also organizer of Angular Toronto. Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
me.
It's amazing to have you here. A little backstory. Last what is it? February seems like ages ago. It was just February.
Hmm.
We were in Atlanta, one of the last in-person conferences, at least for me, the last for this
Yeah.
year. And I had the opportunity to join Alex with a workshop about how to use NgRx. And I think it was a 2-day workshop pushed into one. So we had quite an intense session, and I think the result of it was that it got me interested back again in NgRx. I was of the Mama boilerplate camp often. I really felt like privileged to be in this session, and it really sparked my interest. So it's awesome.
Yeah,
And
that was a
today,
very exciting one. Yeah.
yeah, it was cool. And like for me, I was like a little guy walking around Google offices first time, like literally sending photos to my mom, like, "Hey, look, I'm at Google's." Like, "Yoo-hoo, you're a big boy now."
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
that was it was in Atlanta. We won't go too deep into it, but basically, yeah, it was also one of my last conferences live, and I'm
yeah,
happy that I got a chance to be there. That was a confident conference that happened instead of other conference.
yeah,
So yeah, and because of that, I guess that gave me the opportunity to basically open up the workshop since I was coming anyway, and invite many people who wanted to listen for free, pretty much.
yeah.
It was a good one. Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah, it was a great session. And well, for me, it served a lot. It got me a lot of insight in what does NGRX looks like today. I was one of the people that dove into it once it got there, and then without knowing what I should do, I started to make a mess of my app. And I think this is an area where a lot of people find themselves in. They see a new exciting technology or pattern. They're not sure how to use it. They shove it through their app, and then they're like, "Okay, what mess did I create?" And so yeah, another
Excellent.
fun side note, because the API of NGRX changed drastically for the better. I think there's been a lot of cleanup, and there's been a lot of less code involved to get to the same effect. However, 2 days ago, I updated a very simple project, but it had NGRX and it was built in Angular 5. So let's say that's about 2.5 years ago, and the
Mhm.
NGRX stuff still worked. So it upgraded from, I don't know, also maybe 5, 6-ish to 10,
Nice.
still worked, which I think is a testament that it's the changes are being introduced gradually and like in a thoughtful way, and they seem like accumulative. So you can like add the new stuff onto it, but if you don't feel like it, you can keep the stuff as it is.
Yeah, we try to be the least, trying to be backwards compatible as much as possible.
Right.
Although some practices we introduce and we are just changing it. Some could have been changed through migration process, the update itself. I'm not sure about how that
It,
go.
it was
Hopefully, it went
it was
well.
it was in a stack blitz. So I
Yeah,
literally just updated dependencies. Stack blitz would update it for me,
nice.
and it was a super simple counter example. But I didn't have effects, but I had reducers, actions, and
Mm.
they were wired up. And
Yeah, that's great.
yeah, awesome. So super. Without further ado, today we're gonna take a look at an application I'm working on. I'm gonna share it on the screen right now, which is called Connect to Mind. And Connect to Mind is a community platform that I'm working on, and we're using this for the foundation that I'm a founder of here in Colombia. We're not using it right now, but we are going to use it. And I've set this up with the idea in mind, like I would love to have Alex comments on how we can use NgRx in certain parts of the app. And without going over the app too much in detail, I think that's not really interesting. I want to show a few highlights and things what we can think about and work on in this app. To give you all a brief idea, the main entity here, the main tenant here is a community. So somebody can join a community and ask requests, which are basically mentoring requests, one-on-one, live help. You can ask for a code review or a mentoring session. People can ask questions in a select group. So this you can see as like your in-house Stack Overflow, if you will, but hopefully without toxic behavior. And our students can do missions. And this is basically a sort of short track that the student needs to follow in order to be admitted to the process. So this is some context. We probably won't go into these things at detail, but these are all potentially interesting things to look at, like how would we provision this data or the state with NgRx. One thing that we have here is a simple chat. So it's just a one-on-one private message. So I can chat here and it will appear. One of the things you can already see is that in the left-hand sidebar, this doesn't update straight away. But if I do refresh, it sees that I got the chat with Steve here. So I think this is typically one example of things how a state management solution can fix these kind of things without having your code go all hairy. So that's that. One thing we can look at, but I think for today, what we're going to start out with is this part of the UI. And this part of the UI is where a user of the system can manage their email addresses. And it's more or less copied from the GitHub UI. I love to look at how the giants do it. So, and I'm known as a blatant stealer or borrowing, how you call it. So I borrowed the UI from GitHub. We have basically three main functions here. One is you can add an email address. And if you click add, it will appear on the list. You can set a different email address as private. So now I made the other one private. Let's get back to my main one again. And you can delete an email address. So functionality-wise, I think it's relatively simple. I also think it's pretty easy to map this to another system you would have in your application. Mm-hmm. So I'd say let's dive into it. Yeah. I think my question to Alex, to make it explicit, because we discussed it a bit before, I would love to know from Alex, what are your thoughts? What are your things to keep in mind? How do you decide whether you use the NgRx store, the classic one, or not sure if that's the good term, but at
global.
NgRx.
I call it global.
Perfect. The global one, or the newly introduced with NgRx 10, the newly introduced component store, which is something that you heavily contributed to, and I think originated in the Firebase console, if I'm not mistaken.
Definitely. Yeah, one of my teammates created the original version of it, trying to address some of the issues that we were facing. And where we find that the global store was not quite the right fit, and that was actually quite a frequent comment that I got externally as well. So that one's basically was promoted into NgRx upstream, and I think it's a very good complement to the global one. So local and global, and now we are fully covering any state management issues or problems that we're trying to solve. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Is it possible to give us a resume on why what was the limitation of the global store in particular in the console?
Definitely. So there are actually a number of things. For example, like these emails that you have here, right? It has a state, but it's not shared anywhere outside of this view, right? So you basically want to self-contain it here, and it has no need to be in the global scope of things, right? There's no need for it to be there at all, especially if you're adding things here. Like nothing else would care about this. So it's a very localized view. At the same time, so you won't. And but at the same time, to work with this, you'd still need to create a bunch of actions, right? Dispatch this, do that, and all that, basically to trigger single things. So there's basically, you have two interactions. Once it's reactivity from the source itself, right, from the state itself, reactivity, and then the other interaction is the actions. And while the first interaction is great, right, the reactivity. So, for example, your emails just change because things happen without them being asking for it every time, right? You are paying the second price of having an action without too much need in that. So that's one thing. Like this is the example that we see here today, but this is not the example that actually pushed us towards it. The most common was, hey, we had a fairly complicated component that was encapsulating a lot of state, but then we had multiple of them, you know, on the screen at the same time, or even at different parts of the application. And then the state was kind of self-contained within those components. It was quite complex, but now we needed to tie it to the larger one, to the global state, maybe like by index or something like that. And that felt very unnatural, right? And a little bit more overcomplicated, especially when we wanted to clean up once that you know, that component was gone, basically, right?
Right.
So that was the biggest push.
Right. So basically, keep the state close to components where they live. Make it basically sit right next to it. And also, I think the way I would see it, at the moment you navigate away from this page, it's also gone.
Yeah.
Which is a nice property to have.
Yep. Sometimes it's desirable, sometimes not, right? So basically, you have to weigh in a lot of those things.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, and I think as of a lot of things in our industry, the right answer is it depends. When I use global store or component store, it depends. I think for me personally, the name component store might be a bit deceptive, that like it's only for provisioning actions in like a component. Whereas the other hand, if I think as like, okay, my whole app is a component, it's basically the shell contains, I could have a component store on the top level, maybe to provision this little icon here. But yeah, let's not dive into this. I would love to see how we tackle this in the component store. So yeah, just to iterate on again, this is a simple page. It has 3 presentational components. We won't really look into it. We have a component that lists the email and gives you a button. We have a component that allows you to select primary email and to add a new one. And we would
you can basically see those 3 presentational components right there, right?
Yeah, there's 3 cards, and each of them have them. They use inputs to go in, and they use outputs to go out. And this is a way I love to work, because these components are agnostic on how we provide the state, which I think is great. Let's dive into it. I'm super excited about this, and I'm gonna check out where the stuff is. So here inside account emails, this is where we have the components we're looking at. Let's catch it up a little bit with the color coding, but in essence, I'm not sure why this is not loading correctly. But in essence, let's take a look. We have one card here, which is the account email list, the account email primary form, and the account email form. These are the 3 things we have. And then from a data fetching point of view, I have an admin data account service right here. And this service is what interacts with the API, the GraphQL backend. And it allows me to add methods on there for data retrieval. And one of the ones you can see here is emails, where it basically fetches all your emails. The other one are add email, delete email, set primary email. And at some point, we might want to look at error handling. But yeah, this is in essence it. And the trick that I use often in a lot of my apps, if I want to get this behavior, like, hey, somebody enters something in the form, I want to update the rest, is add a little refresher. So this is a behavior subject, take an observable of it. And the first thing I do is listen to this observable, subscribe to the observable, pipe the action through it, request through it. And then at the place when I want to refresh, I basically give it a little nudge like, hey, refresh. So, okay, that's it. And I think as of now, it's I'm going to drive and you're going to navigate. That's basically it. So what's your first thing to do on this kind of occasions?
Yeah, so first we'll try to see and identify where your state lives. So it looks like the account email component. It basically asks the service, and the service is stateless, right? So the service that we're asking emails from is basically stateless. So every time we ask for it, it gives us new data. It doesn't have any cache, nothing like that. And this is how I prefer my services as well, right? I don't want to have them any surprises. I want my services to do what I ask them to do.
Right.
And this looks like what you're doing here as well, which is
Yeah,
great.
we can take a small peek, but it's basically what you say. It's actions that call into an SDK. It doesn't keep state. We do. I did hack in some error handling, but this is probably another topic altogether, how to properly do this. But yeah, my service provides services, and I do some work with the data, but no heavy lifting and not at all state.
Yeah, awesome. And we'll actually probably will move some of the error handling a little bit closer to where you actually would care about it, which is this component, for example. But then again, it depends. Like our whole error handling strategy is quite a big topic, and we can go into it and see if we have time for it. All right. So emails is our state. And we affect that state with different ways, right? We either add email, delete email, and set primary, and we persisting this. So this is a persistent state. This is not a UI state. This is a persistent state that we get to the backend. One thing I see that refresh here, right? By the way, you don't really need to say public for things because they are public by defaults. I would typically remove the publics, just like the first thing. Yeah, exactly. And moreover, the refresh the behavior subject is really private. The first one,
right? Yeah.
This is the typical way to contain a state through the behavior subject and use it, as you said, as to nudge the new fresher data.
Yeah.
Okay. So first thing we can do is we'll create we can create even in the same component right now. It's up to you if you want to be switching between the components or you would just want to create the service just underneath this component. It's up to you what you want to do. Whatever makes it easier. Since this is quite a small component, we can probably do it here. Ideally, I would put it in a separate file, but we can do it here as well, just to see and have a visual comparison as well, right? So we'll create something like I'd call something emails store. Emails store that extends component store.
And I think
and we need to import that one.
And we need to install it.
Yeah, you need to definitely install it. So it's at NgRx component dash store.
Yeah.
So yes.
And I think in general, I would also exclude it, but I think for this demo, or exclude it, put it in a different file. But I think for this demo, it probably is cool to do it on the same file.
Yeah, especially, so it's just for visual comparison. You can see where things would go and how things move. So while you're editing it, we'll also annotate this. Okay, yeah, you want to.
I think, I think my connection not the fastest, so, but it looks like it got there in time. So
it's component store is basically a single file, right? So this is one of the things that people like NgRx, and right away people assume it's a huge thing that many moving pieces. Even the global store is not as big as some people think it is. But this one, the component store, is basically a single file. Well, it has one custom operator, but that's beside it. It's a single file of 330 lines of code.
Right.
So this is basically as good as your just one other service. So we would annotate or decorate this also with injectable. Okay. But we won't be doing it en route because we will be providing this to a specific component only. So we'll make the store component scoped, and we'll get to that in a second. Okay. All right. So once you import the injectable as well, right?
This one should be there. No, not yet.
Yeah, this is still high.
It's
exactly. And this one from
NgRx didn't catch up yet, so we're gonna go and just import it manually.
Sure.
component store from NgRx component
There you
store.
go.
Okay,
Awesome.
And then while we're at it, might well as well injectable. I think is from common.
Yeah. No. It's the core. It's from core.
Injectable. There we go.
There you go.
Okay, cool.
Awesome.
So this is our store, and you say this one is going to be component scoped. So this is why we don't have to say injectable for root.
Yes, exactly. Just one other thing we'll do here is we will create, just before this class, we'll create the interface.
Okay.
And this interface, we would call emails. Yeah. So what we're going to keep here is I will be going to do email state. Email state is good enough.
Yeah.
And this is what we'll be keeping in the store. So which of a persisted state the store would actually own. And this is very important that it owns all of it and none of the other application owns any of it, right? So this is a component store that owns this persisted state. Right. So what we will have here is probably the emails themselves, right? So which would be, they could be
maybe like this, an array of email.
Sure. Do you want it to be undefined initially, or do you want to set it to empty? I think it's up to you how you want to do it. You could have it empty by default, but then you would still have like a loading loading state as well, and that state is. But then I think. Typically, what I would do, I would still make it undefined initially. So I'll have the question mark as well, like emails question mark, right? So I will allow it to be undefined. And why we're doing this? Because I still see the difference between them not being there at all, right? I don't have any emails.
Yeah.
Or I have the empty list, right?
Yeah. Difference between not loaded and you have no records after loading.
True. I won't be building the loading part into it because it's eventually very easy to screw it up. So I typically rely for the loading part. I rely on a separate property, which would be like the loading state. You can do the Boolean for now. Yeah. Right. So I would then also make it part of the email state, for example.
Yeah. Would you suggest we add it right now? Loading.
Sure. Loading. Boolean. Exactly.
Boolean. And it's never undefined because we probably initialize it with one thing, and at the moment we hit the endpoint, we're going to set it to true. Switch it back. Awesome.
Yeah. So this is one thing, and then let's leave the error out for now. We'll just leave these two. And the reason why loading is, for example, we could be loading when we're adding the new one or refreshing things, but we can still show the previous emails, and if they were empty, we can still show them as empty. So we'll have that separately. Okay. So now when we extended the component store, we'll let the component store know that this is the state that we're working with. So in the generic here, we'll do the emails state. Exactly. So one thing with this one is when do we want to populate this initial state?
Right.
Do we want to wait until we get the first response, or since we have the loading part in there, I would probably start with the initial state as well. So then there are two ways to provide that initial state. The simplest way, especially when you actually have some kind of data that you want to initialize with, for example, loading false, right? Is you can do the constructor. So you would do the constructor here. That doesn't take anything. Yeah. And then the super, actually you leave super there. And in the super, you provide the initial exactly. And we'll do the false. Exactly. We'll do the false. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
We don't want it to assume we're loading right away. We want to let it know that we'll be loading.
Yeah. Makes total sense.
Awesome. Okay, so we have our component store here. Now just let's go a little bit back to our component now for a second. And we'll go to the component decorator all the way up. Or we can actually do after the template. Actually, we can do after the template. We'll add our new store here as a provider. So we'll do providers. and we'll do the emails store. And why we're doing it here in providers is now we're saying that this store is attached scope-wide to this component. That means that it'll be instantiated for every single new email accounts component, which we have only one anyway, but it will have its own instance and it's scoped to this component and all of its children should they need it, right? So if there are any children that inject email store and don't provide it, they'll get this instance from here. This allows us to have more complex trees, but this one will be fairly straightforward and it won't have, you know, any of the components using the email store for it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, awesome. So I think a lot of people are not familiar with like things we commonly know as services. Things that have the @injectable operator can be provided at several places, and you can do it. Classically, it was in the module. That's probably the most common. And then I think as of Angular 6 or 7, we got the provided in root, which allows you to use them without registering. But you can also provide them only for this component scope, which has the nice added benefit, like you can have multiple instances, and it's not a singleton.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so and now you'll need to inject it in the component itself, right? So we provided it in here, and now in the constructor of this component, we will inject it as well.
So private read only, and what is? Do you have a? Yeah, this is something else.
I did. We always do private read only for any services we inject, just to make sure that they're not leaking into the templates, and just to make sure that
they're not reassigned.
Reassigned, you never do it, but you know, just want to avoid the bugs, and it's just like that kind of habit. It doesn't take much to do that.
Yeah, awesome.
I would call it email service. I would call it email service just with lower. Yes, exactly. Email service. Yeah.
And in order to make WebStorm, my editor, happy, I need to pop it before the declaration. So I'm going to go quickly over here, pick it up, and add it to the start of the file.
Oh, I see. Okay.
But this should fix. Yeah, there you go. So okay, we provided the store here. We injected like any other service or injectable we would
exactly.
provide.
I wouldn't call it an email service. I would call it emails store. So similar what you have there. Yeah, exactly. I just the difference here is I typically call, if I have a component store like email store, I would name it fully, because store personally I dedicate for the global one. So that's that. All right, so we can actually comment out for now. Comment out all the state that we have. Okay, yes, and now in the methods we'll comment out the bodies. Oh yeah, function bodies. Just comment. Exactly. No, we'll the whole thing.
The whole. Okay, perfect. Yeah. Even better. Yeah. Okay. So we'll get rid of this. Probably leave the. Are you sure you want to delete the email question?
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds good. All right. So now, and now the beauty of it, we can actually start writing it without any implementation of the store right now, because this is how we want to consume it, right? So here, what we would do, we would say, okay, read-only emails. This is the ones that we need. Read-only emails, exactly, and it's equals to emails store, dot emails. And so this is similar. See, emails with a stream, yes. So similar to the property name that you have. Emails, yeah. We could do a VM if it's more than emails. Actually, let's do that. So instead of your emails, just do the VM. VM and $sign.
$sign. And also local
same thing, VM $sign, yeah.
Yeah, okay. VM
so this would be
view model.
View model, exactly. So we'll let our store, since it's, again, this store is not using any other components. This store is very particular to this component, and it's providing all of the view model. And our view model here would include emails and loading. Right, so this, you could have more, it could have less.
And eventually it might have error, and it might have other fancy stuff that we add on top. Awesome.
And not everything in the store we will be using, so we're specifically creating a view model for this particular component, right?
Perfect.
So, okay, so we have that. You don't like semicolons at the end, do you?
I don't. No, I
Okay,
pretty
all right.
away them. Yep.
All right. So in the add email, so now let's go to the method. Yes, add email. So we'll do this this email store dot add email. The only thing, there's a payload that's any. Let's switch this to. I like to name my variable properties also to be more meaningful than just payload. Just because I want to see them, I would typically not name it payload. I'll probably call it email, right? So basically, yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And then let's do the same just for being consistent. Let's do it same here.
That's awesome. All right, and now we are adding this email. Yeah, depends.
In here to the method.
Exactly. That's it. Delete, same thing. Just pass the delete. And set primary, same thing. Just.
Yep, I'm just going to be lazy here and copy paste a bunch of stuff. But here we are. Okay, so
this component now is very readable. No state, no refreshes, nothing here. You know, you get the method call. You just let the store handle it for all of this, right?
You're suggesting from the component part of view, this is everything we're going to need.
Exactly.
At this moment. That's awesome. Well, bar, of course, reading the emails in the templates, but from the component body, the TypeScript part, this is it.
This is it. Exactly.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. So now, now we'll get back to our component store, right? And we'll do a few things. So first, we'll do the read-only VM, right? So we'll provide the VM. I'll typically do it after the constructor. Just you can do it before, but since all we'll have in this email stores are typically just the properties, that's okay to do it after the constructor. Again, it's up to your personal taste. I just like constructor to be up for this particular case, and because I can see what it initializes, and basically I don't need it anymore. So read only. This would be with the $sign, right?
Yep.
And what we're saying here, it's equal to. We'll use a selector from the component store. So this dot select, right? And we'll be selecting from the entire state. So we will do a state here, and then we'll do the arrow exactly. And then it's up to you how we can create this one. I typically am a little bit lazy here. So instead of the state, I'll just do, you know how you create the object on the fly, basically. So you have exactly, yeah, and then you do emails, state emails exactly, and loading, yeah, exactly.
You basically explicitly pick off the items that you want to show in the view model.
Exactly, and one interesting thing, I could have just passed the state, right?
Yep.
Why am I not doing that?
Yep.
I'm not doing that because there will be more things that will be adding to this, and I don't want to be very explicit which things I want to provide to my view model, and not just shove it in there automatically without any supervision, so to speak.
I like it. I think this is a pretty nice form of being explicit and saying like, these are the things I want to basically publicly expose outside of this component store, and all the rest is internals.
Yeah. Sometimes I would be more fancy in a way. I don't know. It's just like it's up to the group that you work with. Some would really prefer to be this way. Sometimes I would destructure the state in the argument here. So instead of state, I would right away pull out the emails and loading there, and just and then just pass. So it'd be emails, comma, loading. So without the yes. Yeah, exactly. Like this.
Like this.
It's basically the same thing. It's up to I've highlighted. It's very important that you have consistency with your team. Some teams, like we do this, no problem. If this is not what your team does, and you're just throwing stuff because you're being smart, and this reduces the readability of the code within your team. So you should think twice before you do this.
Yeah.
If this is something that your team is not familiar with, right?
Yeah.
So be consistent. Since it's your own code base and you are the only one working on it, as far as I understand.
Yeah. At this moment, yes.
It's really up to you how you do it, especially if you be onboarding somebody else, you can introduce them to this structuring things as well. It's up to you.
I think a lot of people, when they see this particular structure to do this, basically destructure two properties and pass it back as the same argument, they often do not really understand what's the benefit. Basically, that you're selecting stuff and re-exposing it. I know that when I first saw it was like when ES6 come around and we started getting these things. I was like, but why? You're doing exactly the same thing, but you're not. You're skipping all the options that are not there. But
exactly, yeah.
Let's leave it like this. I like this. I think this is clean and expressive.
Yeah.
So cool. We have
either way. So now let's get back to the other things, right? We'll first start, for example, with adding the email, right?
Let me be lazy here and not retype. I'm just going to say create this method email. So, okay, we have the method email.
Remove the public. It's actually not this, not quite this, because it won't be really a method. Okay. So this is, somebody asked me recently, I call them callable properties. I thought this is a universal term. Some people were asking me what it is, and then I started Googling like where's the callable properties, and I couldn't find them. So basically there are like methods, right? You assign it to the property, but it's callable. So what it would be read only still, like read only add email, right?
Read only add email. Yep.
Yes, but then I'll assign it to something. Exactly. And what I would assign it to is this effect. So this would be an effect. Whenever we add things and we call other services, this is an effect. This is a side effect of this operation. So this will be this effect.
Effect.
This effect, yeah. And now there's two ways how we can do it. All right. So since this is an effect, and it could be called multiple times from multiple places. What we have inside, as you can see, there's observable inside. The origin is an observable of things. And add email provides us an email every time. So we'll have the observable of those emails. Why do we do this, right? What we're doing instead is every time this email is called, it's pushed into this observable chain. And this is where we can really control how we handle all these flattening strategies that effects are so good at handling. For example, if we're working on already one email, adding it, what do we do with the second one? Do we, wait for the first one to complete? Do we stop the one that we're working on? Do we add all that stuff? Anyhow, we need to provide the type there. So we can either do it in a generic here, or we can do it as a property, as a proper type of the argument. So let's do in here. So just do email. Here in the generic, you can do email. And then you will do emails. Inside emails with a $sign because it's a stream. All right. And then you do the arrow. Exactly. And you would do emails pipe. Pipe. All right. So if you hover over the emails here, the first one, the argument itself, see, it already knows it's observable of the email.
Right.
One other way we can do is instead of passing the decorator, we can explicitly type it as an observable of email, and it will work as well. Moreover, it's very strict on types, so make sure that it's an observable that you want to pass on all the stuff. So there are basically two ways to do it. This is one of them, right?
Yeah. And we can maybe, with the set primary, we can look at the other pattern and just see how they compare.
Yeah, exactly. So now we have the emails, right? So this is a stream of every time somebody calls the add email, how we handle them, right? Yeah. So one of the...
The first thing that pops in my mind when I see this, what it looks like for me, first time really using it, is what we're doing here is as soon as we possibly can, we start shoving it into an observable so we can use all the goodness like pipes and have all the control over what we want to do right there. So I mean, this is kind of the feeling I have. Not sure if that's one of the thoughts behind it, but I like it's getting ASAP to being observable, so we can subscribe to it and we can do fancy stuff.
The reason we're doing observables here is we want to handle all the race conditions in the effect. Like this is the primary reason, right?
Right.
Okay, awesome. So now in here, in the pipe itself, we'll choose what do we want to do with the first email, right? When we get another one. So for example, here, when we get a new email, we could probably start adding it in parallel, right? It doesn't really matter because we're adding the new one, right?
Yeah.
So that means we can use the merge map operator, so we can do things in parallel, right?
Cool.
Merge map, exactly.
I think the result of whatever
yeah, that's fine. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that takes like one email of the observable. And
now thinking about it, it also depends how service behaves. All right, let's just do this one. We'll probably switch it to concat map actually, but let's just do this. Okay, so now I have the email, and we'll call the service that you had before. Is this service add email?
That needs to be injected in the store, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so let's pick it up.
So you can remove it from here. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and it's already grayed out because we're not longer using it. So awesome. Pick it up here, and there we go. And then we can say right here, is that service add email.
Add email, exactly. And you'll pass this email in there, right?
Yeah.
And then we'll pipe off this service, the inside. So this now say we now added this service, right? And what do we do? Like, what does this service give us back? Does it give us anything back?
Yes, this service gives us back a typical structure here. It's a result that has data on it and that has errors on it.
Okay, so it does have the new data, right? So it does have the new collection of this, right?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, so that means that we
not the new collection. It gets the instance of the email you just added. So you get the new email object with an ID and its properties.
Awesome. Okay, so it doesn't give us the whole set of emails back. It just gives you a single one. All right, that's awesome. Awesome. So that means that we need to trigger the refresh at this point, right? Yeah. So what you can do here is you would call this.
We're inside
a tab. Yeah, so we'll do the tap
operator. Perfect. Tap operator. We take the.
So typically the way I do it here, and I'll just give you a hint here right away. I typically pass the object inside that has two basically properties: next and error. And I'll explain you why we do this. So in tab here, exactly. Yeah, just do it. Exactly. Next. Error. Exactly. So each one each one is a callback. So it's a property, right? So next would be colon.
So it's gonna be I'm messing.
Exactly. And now yeah.
So this would be one, and
this would be
this would be other.
Awesome. Yes, exactly. So we're not really using the instance that we get back. So here in the next, yes, I would do this.
So here we can refresh the list, and here is what we do: handle error.
Exactly.
And then let prettier kick in, and now we have a nice organized structure. Perfect.
Exactly. Just before we do actually handling the refresh list, one thing that I have to do right away after this step, if you add another operator, and it's just in the inner pipe, and this operator will be catch error operator.
Perfect. Catch error.
Catch error, and you don't use error. Yeah, you already handled. We'll handle the error in the tab, but this one will be just empty object. So empty, yes, exactly, and no, actually empty, all capital letters. Yeah, no, you had it right. It's a callback.
Sorry.
It's a callback. It's still a callback. Exactly.
And
for empty, exactly.
That's the first time I use it. Awesome. Okay.
So why we do empty, and why we do the catch error inside? Should the service throw the error, right? Should the end email throw the error?
Yeah.
We would handle the error somehow in our tap, but we
Yeah.
don't want this error to propagate outside in the outer pipe of emails and basically collapse the whole attack. This makes sure that if we get the error, we'll just do the empty one. We don't care what it produces because we're not pushing anything outside of here, and we'll handle everything in the tap itself. Moreover, I see this tap next error and catch error with empty. I saw this pattern over and over again within our code base. So for NgRx version 11, I'm adding something that's called a handle response operator. That would be basically tap with next error and catch error. And you would just need to provide two functions, next and error, because catch error is sometimes forgotten.
Yeah.
And people think, oh, I handle the error in tap, right? Well, you don't.
Well,
you handle the error, but it's still pushed through the observable.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, cool. And I didn't know the use of empty. I did know empty existed, heard about it sometimes, but what I generally do, I use catch error when I want to catch the error, but I didn't know, so I always rethrow it. So it's kind of like, yeah, you have this rethrown error that you then ignore at some point. I like this pattern.
What you could have done is you could have had next and handle something there and not handle the error, but then in a catch error, handle something and return empty anyway. But I feel this is cleaner. And moreover, this new operator, the handle response operator, will just do it for you. It's just a very small wrap around these one.
Awesome.
So you just don't forget this catch error. It's there out of the box. And again, it's tree shakeable. So if you don't use it, it won't be part of your bundle. Okay. So now we have the next, and in this next, we will do the call to this, get emails, fetch emails, whatever you want to do, get emails, and
Perfect.
empty. Yeah, exactly. Perfect. So that's what we do here.
Okay, can create this method, I assume.
So one thing here is since we're we can do the merge map. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. So what it means is that we start things in parallel. So say we were super fast and we added 2 emails at the same time. They'll be sent in parallel, right? Because of the merge map.
Yeah.
We'll call the service in parallel, not waiting for each of the responses, right?
Yeah.
And then each of them, once it's finished, you will call the get emails. And now what we do with the get emails will be interesting as well. So we'll create the new effect for the get emails.
Right. Okay. So I have to stop thinking about if I invoke it as a method, I should define it as a method. You can just define it as a property and say use effect, handle
exactly.
it. So there's something to keep in mind. So I'm not going to use my editor's goodness that allows me to create methods. That's fine. So this I'm saying here is this effect.
This is an effect.
It doesn't take any arguments.
Exactly. So you can just do it as, I call it trigger. So when I don't have any arguments, I'll just call it a trigger.
Okay.
And by default, you do not specify anything. It's observable void. This is what we're getting because get emails is just a trigger.
Yeah.
So do the trigger $. That's it. No, you'll still need to do the trigger. Yeah. Trigger
$,
and trigger pipe.
Okay. Yeah. Perfect. So this is also, I think, a pattern that I already see. So the things that we invoke as a method, we define them by saying read only, name of the thing. And then this effect, we give the generator here a name and we pipe it. So this is probably something we can add a nice shortcut in our editor. Give me this stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yep. I like these kind of conventions.
Awesome. So one thing I want your viewers to really see right now, if you just go back to this add email, I just want to really highlight it, right? Go to this add email, see it's an observable emails, right? And now scroll back to the component where we add the email. See, we're passing a single instance, right? And it just works.
Yeah.
So that means that every time somebody, no matter who calls, could be this component, could be something else, it could be the user that's very fast, whatever. Every email that's being added is put into this pipe in the street.
Yeah.
And then we handle that street. So this is where how we handle all those race conditions.
Yeah.
All right. So now, so now let's go up. Okay.
Yep.
So get emails. So this trigger now. Okay. So this is an interesting one. So every time we get this trigger, now we have to decide how we want to do this. And again, see, this is the beauty of it. We now have to decide which of the 4 flattening operators we'll use. Merge map, right? Doing parallel, exhaust map to ignore any incoming requests because we're busy on something. Switch map to stop whatever we're doing and use the new value, or concat map, which is basically sequence them one after another, right? So hold the previous value until I'm busy with this one. And now we have this get emails, right? So we call those get emails sometimes when we open the page, sometimes when we add the email. But because we call it when we're adding the email, right, means that we can do add emails in parallel, right? And then the first one added calls this one, and now the second one added calls this one as well. Now the first one was already busy getting the response. What do we want to do with this? In my opinion, okay, go ahead. You want to do that?
My initial go would be switch map.
Exactly.
Because we want to have the latest value, and if we're in between the two, we might get a result set bet that doesn't include the email we just added last. So
exactly.
Yeah.
100%. Because sometimes you might have an initial thing like, oh, we can do exhaust map. We're already asking for it, right? Don't bother me with a new one. But we're actually asking for the second one because we could have added the second email at the same time, right?
Yeah.
So that means we would do the switch map here. And this is so awesome, right? Because we're basically ignoring the first response, canceling the first request, and we're starting the second one. So switch map.
Awesome. Yeah.
And here our switch map, we would call this service, get.
It's just emails in plural.
Emails, all right. And we'll pipe it now here.
And a pipe, again, an inner pipe. So I think this is also a pattern I start to see.
Yep.
You do this, outer pipe is basically for handling the trigger or the action you want to do. And then everything, all the heavy lifting happens inside a inner pipe.
Exactly. Yeah. Awesome. The outer pipe is basically for handling race conditions. Inner pipe is where you do things. And cool. So you have exactly, so you can copy almost this tap, next error and catch error. And again,
yeah, it should be a custom observable for this.
Custom operator, exactly. Yeah.
Get rid of this. We don't want to get in a loop. So, but yeah.
Exactly. So here, what we do here, now this is the place where we would add it to our state.
Right. So this is where we get it from the API.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So now we have this. Oh, that's an interesting response.
It's it has to do with how the pipes get generated from GraphQL SDK.
Yeah, okay, I see.
But so in essence, it's an array of emails.
I see, and it generates interestingly with an or null. Interesting. Okay, I typically don't use nulls much. My go-to is undefined. Anyhow, that's fine.
Let's take one side step to this one, because here what I do inside emails, and this was just how I started building it. One thing I do here is skip the Apollo client cache, because the Apollo client cache is there. I do some caching on the back. I don't want the cache to kick in right now. I just want to have a fresh network request at this moment, because otherwise the UI breaks, right?
That's fine, yeah.
But another thing I do right here is basically pick off my actual emails. And this is something I ideally do not do, because right now I ignore the errors here. So I would suggest before continuing that I just get rid of this outer this pipe I had here, and just use emails. Hey, we actually have people. I'm not at all paying attention to the chat. I'm just.
I'm paying attention. It's mostly highs and hellos.
Hello there, the JavaScript guy, and Chow says hello. Hey there, Chow. And we already featured Santosh here, who says component store is amazing. I agree.
The purple star, I'd say.
Yeah, it's the purple star. I would say gold star. So, okay, I just quickly went in and got rid of the account email. So whatever we get back right now here is the results, which has and the data and the errors.
Awesome.
Do you have a convention on how to call this? Because I'm always res, because it's results and it's short, 3 fingers.
Res is okay. I don't try to save letters because we read code more than we do. And again, it's very much a convention within your team. If res is fine, that's okay. I'd probably still call it response.
Yeah. Okay.
Or results. It's up to you. Response gives me a more confidence that this is a pure API that goes back and forth, right? So I don't have anything in between, like this is actual response. Yeah, so I would do response. Yeah. Res is okay. It's both short for results and response, I guess.
I mean, in my team where I'm the only one, it's generally okay what I do, but I love your opinion. It's one of the reasons I do show and tell, to learn best practices from people, from like experts.
Yeah, and especially if my response could be a little bit longer, like if the functions could be a little bit more than 1 or 2 lines, I would try to definitely have the full name for it. Just because, like 5 lines down the right, like you have to remember what this res is.
Yep.
And,
Yeah.
for the error, for example, errors are typically 1-liners or 2-liners. I would sometimes do E. Right.
Yep.
Yes, but because you have error there already, and it's E, like, it's up to you. You could do error as well.
Yeah. Probably the best suggestion here: consistency is key. So as long as you open your app, it's cool if it's response at all places and not result at one, response at the other, and rest, because you might think like, hey, why is it called response here? Is it something different?
Yeah, somebody says that they'll destructure the response as well.
Yeah.
You could do it. You just have to be a little bit aware of typings and things that change, because again, whatever you're destructuring into could be removed later on, and what are you destructuring there could be always undefined. But again, you'll touch triple catch out stuff. Yeah, it depends. It definitely depends. Especially if your response nests more and more, like you have deeper object from the response. Yeah, maybe you can already unwrap it in the destructure in the next. So yeah, that's a good way to do it as well.
Yeah, so we have response here, and we have response.data, which has my account emails.
Yeah, so actually data could have been destructured there already. Yeah, which should have been, I would probably do it there, exactly.
Let's take out data. I like that.
Yeah.
So we have data here, and data has now a data dot account emails. And this has to do with GraphQL. You get a key back for each query, because in one request, you can have various queries. So what I often have, if, for instance, if I would have pagination on the same result set, I would hear account emails counter, for instance, which gives me the count, how many are there, which page I'm on, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and we'll do. Again, I don't know how long you wanted this to go. What we can do is to do it in 2 things. Like we can simply do is overwrite all our emails with the account emails that we get, right? Because we're using the switch map, it kind of guarantees that we always have this most recent data, right?
Yeah.
So, and again, there's a couple ways to do it. What we haven't seen yet is something that's called an updater. And we'll do the first thing simply without the updater. Okay, so what we will do is we'll do this, set result, set state, set state, and we'll take it as a callback. First, we'll take this, the first argument would be the state, and this is actually the only argument that we'll use right now. We can, we can do that, spread the state, we can do that, and then we will do the emails exactly with our newly received data.
Data account emails. Awesome.
So since we're doing the loading, actually one more thing here. So before the switch map, we can do the tap. And in our tap, it'll be just a callback. No, nothing will pass, and we'll do the set state and we will take the state and switch the state, and we'll do the loading to true. So just hold on there a second. Since we'll be repeating this a few times, what we can do is just above the get emails, you can create another one, read only.
Yep.
Read only would say set loading. Set loading. Yep. Yeah. And this will be this updater. This dot updater. And updater will take two arguments. First is the state, which we don't need to type. And the second argument, because you already see it, knows already right away what this the type is. And the second argument we will type because we want to know, we want to know what are exactly the value boolean, exactly. So what we're updating it with. And we're going to just do the spread the state here. And I will do loading to this new value.
Yeah, and then probably just call this value loading and use.
Yeah, you can do that.
Operation. Yeah, I like
exactly. That. So now we have the set loading. So now what we can do in our tab, the first one, we can just call this set loading and pass through.
I love it.
Yeah, and moreover, it's very type safe. It'll be very complaining if you don't do the wrong things and stuff like that.
Yeah. It will fail, and
or even if you don't pass, check it out. Yeah. Says, hey, I want something.
Yeah.
Exactly. Awesome. Okay, so we have the loading, and here now we can do here. We can do the loading as well to whatever false, or we can use. We could have used the other one as well.
Okay, so you would suggest? Yeah, I mean, I think this is way cleaner. Set loading here, just use false. That's what you're suggesting, right?
It depends. So if you're already setting the state, we can do it. One thing. And again, this is also the progress. I want to show you, if you have like one-time use cases, yes, that state is fine. But if you're using a few things repeatedly, create an updater. Moreover, in this case, our updater is read-only, but we could have created a private read-only as well, right?
Yeah. Something that just sticks internally with the state. And I assume you could also think about this one. Hey, this might deserve their own updater.
Exactly.
Set emails. Yeah, cool.
Exactly. So yeah, our set loading we can do, by the way, private right now. So just make sure that's not exposed as our API to the external world. So for example, our component cannot set state because we are in control. I had a quick question there. Is it possible to combine component store with immer to allow? Yes, definitely. I mean, it will just, you can wrap it easily with the immer and internal callback pass as a immer function, or you can create the immer aware component store. I don't do it out of the box because it introduces an extra dependency and things like that. But you could definitely do it. And we internally use it as well for some of the things. Cool. For simple things, I try to keep it simple. For more complicated things, if we have 4 or 5 level nested models, I would, especially if there's like arrays as well. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, so we have this one, and now this kind of works. The only thing we need to do right now is we get emails in the we can do the onGen and init.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So
in here in our ng on init in the component.
Let me add the implement here, and let my editor add it for me. And here we are.
So you can do this store
email store dot get emails.
Exactly. So this is now, no, don't pass anything. So this is now a signal when this component initializes to get the emails. Sometimes you can put it in the constructor as well. I'll just make sure. I need to make sure I have somebody open the bug that they had some more complicated chain in the constructor. Well, in chain and it always works. We can look into that as well. So great. So, but now what we implemented right now is race condition happy aware add email that adds it to the thing. Delete email will be very similar, right? Because what we do is can you just scroll up a little bit? Let's see what we do for add email. Oh yeah, we just call it email. Okay, yeah. But
so What we can probably do is try to comment these two out for a second and try to see if it renders and if we can add.
Yeah, sure. So the only thing is you need to do is in your component template, the first thing, wrap the whole thing with the ng container.
Besides the one that I already have?
All the way up.
All the way up. Yep.
Exactly.
ng container.
And here we would unwrap this view model.
View model. So what we're doing is view model $, pass it through async
as VM.
VM view model, and let me
so
drag this one.
What that allows you, you won't have a single async now in your template further down. So this is the only async you'll have in your template. So instead of now NgRx containers, see this container, you can just VM emails. So you have,
Oh, what I think this we briefly. Sorry?
You'll still have loading. So, but just the ngIf, you would, instead of having emails $async, as emails, you'll just have a VM dot
emails as emails.
You could do as emails, or you can just keep VM emails. I like VM because it's very short. So if you're refactoring anything further, it's just VM dot, right? So same in your account email list where you pass emails, it would just VM dot, right?
But we take this one and the other one and say VM dot.
Exactly.
I like it. Yeah.
So and also loading, we can attach this loading, so we can completely separate, because we are very aware if we are doing the loading or if we have the empty result set, right?
Yep.
So instead of else loading, we can attach our loading template and now look for specifically is loading.
So that would have another container here?
I would actually maybe not even have a template. Oh yeah, container, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, basically, let's change the
to container.
Container and then an ngIf here. ngIf VM.loading.
Exactly.
So loading.
So we're no longer building into our data model, like do we have emails as an empty array, like any of the assumptions about, if we don't have it, but it's not an empty list, maybe it's loading them. Like we see, we can completely detach that. Maybe we don't have ABLs, right? Yeah. So this is completely separated now.
Awesome.
And
so
now this should work.
If I hit save and we go back, and this does some compilation, let me make sure. Let's just restart it because I did an npm install and it might not be caught up yet. And in the meanwhile, so yeah, Chow answers here. It's probably too long show on the screen. I'm going to pop it up anyway. The diseffect pattern is probably the answer to my question about separation between triggers and effect. Chow and I had a discussion in our chat on Discord.
Let me see. So this effect pattern is probably the answer to my question about separation between triggers and yeah. So I won't be touching on Rx Angular, especially Rx Angular. I don't know if you mean Rx Angular state.
I think it's Rx Angular state, yes.
Yeah, because they are basically competing libraries. They're basically competing libraries. They're trying to do similar things. In the component store, we only have 3 things, and I try to do it in a very, very prescriptive way. As you can see, there's an updater that touches the state. There's an effect that handles the state, the side effects, and there is a selector that combines multiple observables or that reads the data from the state as well. So those are 3 things only. They're very prescriptive. 1 file, low bundle size, very type safe. I got put extra effort into type safety, and yeah, that's so, and very prescriptive as well.
So for those of you watching, Rx Angular is a project by Michael Hladky, and I myself, I would love to have Michael over sometime just because he seems like super interesting and knowledgeable developer, and I would love him to run me by how to do something similar like this with Rx Angular. And I don't plan on mixing it through my app. I plan to stick with one pattern and use it because I like mental sanity and stuff.
Exactly.
However, I think this and that now having it being component storified, if you will, is a super interesting use case. Like, how would you do the same thing with another technology? And so yeah, let's check it out. The compilation went well, so the site loaded, and now if I go here to emails, we just surprisingly nothing changed, which is sometimes kind of deceptive. Like you were coding for half an hour or an hour and you're talking about it and stuff. It doesn't change, but I think in this case it's for the good. We're at this thing and we get a bad request. So this is probably me not doing the right thing. And let's open the network tab. Let's see. But I think I missed the email. Input is not correct. And this is what you get, children, if you type any, because I typed any and I wasn't being strict enough. So let me quickly move back here. And what we are doing here is add the email. We pass in the email, which has a property email, and this expects a string. So we should not be lazy. What I should actually do here is just properly type this thing because I have them. Account.
This is email, right? Writing or something.
Yeah, account create email input. So I just got a strongly type one. There's no reason for me other than being lazy to not properly type this stuff. I just threw it out there. And this is where you get. And now this will most likely break what we do here. So yeah, you're not providing this thing. And actually, to be honest, this should also be the create account email input.
Should it be? Because you can wrap it at a certain point, right? Maybe email is fine out of there, and maybe you can wrap it at the source level.
The difference is that the whole email object has like ID, and it has a whole lot of properties that I don't want to be passed in my GraphQL. My endpoint here only accepts a string, as you can see here. It extracts a string of email. So
I see. Okay. Yeah.
It's just being too inclusive, and that also means that I need to change it here because this is no longer email. This is the same one. Account create email input. This should now work. Let's double check.
Just make sure that your presentational component also provides that.
I think it's not typed also.
Okay.
But this works. It works great. Okay, awesome. So cool. Yep.
So now you see that, but one important thing in distinction, like you had it working with behavior subject and refresh and all that stuff before.
Yeah.
One thing that you weren't handling is the race conditions. And you just happen to have that email is entered once but then say further on, maybe you can have a bulk email add or like something more than that. And now you have to remember that your app can only handle one at a time.
Yeah.
But this way, with the component store and all the effects that we did, you are very explicit how you handle the race conditions. And it's not just happens to work, but you are intentionally understanding the complexity and making it work.
Yep, I really like it. And I think often with this, I'm not going to suggest that my behavior subject refresh was anything close to the things you do, but oftentimes people are trying to fix these things anyway. So why try and make your own model, repeat it over again, iterate on it when there are solutions out there? And I think this is like also for me, something I should just basically use something like component store, make sure that I get to understand how it works, ins and outs, just default to that.
And one other cool thing that you can do here, which we haven't discussed it. So right now you're waiting for API to complete, to refresh, and only then you get the result, which works fine for your case. And it's super fast anyway. Maybe because it's localhost or whatever.
That helps,
that helps you definitely. But say your response to request to add the email takes, say 1.5 seconds or 2 seconds. In that case, you might want to do optimistic updates for the emails, right? And the component store provides you with this thing also to do easily. I don't know if you want to just quickly go over the code without actually coding it, or
I mean, we can definitely do. I'm going to do it. I'm going to pop it in our list. And I might as well throw it out there. I'd love to have you on next week and at least look at the app again and see where we can leave off, because we're 1.5 hours in. Try to keep them at 1.5 hour max.
Sure.
But optimistic updates definitely something I'd be interested in seeing. We can add some nice delays here to do this. One of the use cases where I actually need it, this backend also has parts that connect to a blockchain where operations actually take a few seconds. And it would be great to have that kind of experience, because right now this app is in progress. It's not optimized. If you now create a wallet on the blockchain, for instance, it'll just wait there and it will give you nothing. And you have to trust that this thing happens and it's done in 3 seconds. So yeah, that's definitely something that's interesting. Another thing, I think a very common pattern is right now my component here still says email. This is something I probably should fix in the component level, right? In the presentational component, once it emits the action, it should clear out the field itself, right?
Yeah.
Or is this something you would do externally as well?
So if they're
So the add email form here, if I hit add here, it will not, it will just stick, right? So
yes, definitely. Or you could, and again, this is part of your presentational component, so it's up to the presentational component to do whatever.
To clean up.
Maybe you want to keep the email, maybe you don't, right? I don't think you want to keep it around. So yeah, it's definitely part of your presentational component to clean it up.
Okay, cool. So we went, and I think this is both the beauty and the deception of doing a good refactor. You don't see anything. That's applause. and my mom would say, like, what are you doing this all for, right? This is just, you have the same behavior. I think actually we gained a lot here. So quickly, we can get rid of these. We can get rid of these, and let's get rid of all of these. This is already looking super clean, if you ask me. And this, for you, this is a very common pattern. This is how you think, how your components often end up looking.
So what I love about this one now, so my component is so easily testable. And one thing I do test through the template. So components, test bed, no problem with that. So it has to be through the interactions with the DOM. And now it's so easy to mock it. Think about it. You just provide the VM for it and verify that it does. And then you click things, add, delete, whatever. And just what you do, you just make sure that email store was called with this. You create a simple mock, no problem. Your component works. And now you can actually test your behavior logic without any test bed, without any of that stuff, because you can simply take the store, provide the service. Again, you can do the mock, right? And really go over unit test the logic that your business logic it actually is, right? That you, hey, when I add the email, I would be called to get the new data, like that kind of stuff. So comes two separate things, easy scalable. Tomorrow you need to add something else. You can easily just call another thing. And then, again, it all works. So scalable, maintainable, very specific, and very careful, so you don't have those incidental complexities. You have actually, you thought about all the race conditions. It's not just works by accident or just because it happens that user cannot call add email multiple times a second right now. Maybe in the future they will. So you're very intentional in how you do things.
Yeah, awesome. I love it. We have about like 10 minutes left. What I would love to try to do is go ahead, and please stop me if you see like you're doing it wrong. But I think so. We should have some more inputs. I think we have a delete email. Delete email input. I just want to make sure that we just take the ID of an email. So this would be email ID, which is of type string. And set primary email, I'm pretty sure we have a set primary email, or we maybe also take set primary email. Mark email primary also takes a email ID. So we should be able to just take email ID from these. And then what I was thinking about doing, let me try and implement delete right now. So I'm going to say email store has an effect or trigger called delete email, which I'm going to define here. And I'm going to do it right below the add email. So I'm going to say not private. I'm going to say delete email equals this dot effect, and let me make this read only. This one takes a string because it's the email ID.
It would
Now,
be email ID.
ID $sign.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, and pipe. Email ID $sign.pipe, and this is where we start actually adding our logic. So my logic here is gonna be, I think, very similar to this. So I'm just gonna copy over the whole bunch here. And I'm already a fan of the custom operator that we were getting.
Yeah.
So the merge map, what we get here is the email ID without the $sign. And here inside the service, we say delete email, pass in the email ID, basically do the rest of the stuff the same.
So now the question is, do you want to, like, how is your backend handling if you get a request for delete the same email twice, right? Like, you can think about that, right? Is it idempotent, which means like it will be no problem calling that twice. The second will be just no, but maybe it'll give you an error saying, hey, not found, error, something like that, because it's like,
so
hey, you try to delete it, it's found.
Probably the way to check it is not refresh the list of emails and just hit the button twice so we can check behavior. So I think that's right?
Yeah, you can do that.
So delete email, and let me get here. So if I delete an email right here, quickly open the, yeah, it's rebuilt. Quickly open the console here so we can see any error messages. Are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. Now this here needs to make sure that I'm doing the right thing in the request, which I'm not.
Error.
Email value got a wrong value. Okay.
You're probably passing the email from the.
I'm passing the whole email. Yeah. So, I mean, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to accept that I indeed passed the whole email. And we're just here going to say, you know what? I'm just going to do it here and change this signature to be email and have this be email $sign. And then inside here, we have the email. Oh, I need to type correctly. Only I could. Yep. And then here we have the email. And then what we're actually interested in doing here is email.id. And I think the added benefit of this is that at some point we could say, hey, you have an error trying to delete email dot, and then give just the thing we're trying to delete and not some random generated ID. So it's good practice. So this refreshes, and now I can go here, get rid of this email, and it gets rid of this. So this actually returns us an instance of the thing you just deleted.
Okay.
For good or worse, at some places I just have a Boolean. It just gives return true if it deleted it. It gives return false if it couldn't find it or it cannot delete it elsewhere. I'm kind of like, I'm not sure how to do it. Let's hit it again, number 6. We do it again, and this is where our backend says, I cannot read.
Okay,
Probability of no.
So it didn't throw the error. It just gives you the object back with the error in it.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. So that means you can do the merge map. So if you're trying to delete the same email twice, it just basically swallows this, right? You can not react to this if you want to, which is fine. Or you can do the concat map and just make sure that you're not deleting or you can even do those pre-checks and stuff like that.
I think, like, from a UI perspective, this is not very likely to happen because we're gonna be refreshing it anyway. I think maybe though, while this happens, let's say the operation takes 2 seconds. While this happens, we probably don't want to have this button disabled because people might click it twice. Well, they have the alert through it, but let's say somebody's very fast at clicking, right? And they,
this is why you want to handle those cases, right?
Yeah.
What if you do it twice in parallel?
Yeah,
it's fine. Maybe you want to split the stream up by IDs, and independent IDs you can do in parallel, but the same ID you make it in sequence, right? The group by kind of thing. So, and again, you'll be very intentional about things, and this is where, those race conditions as something that's very frequently overlooked. And that's like, oh, I tested, it works. I never write unit tests for this because typically you don't test race conditions, and then things just break for some users in some cases, and you're like, what's happening? I don't know, right?
Yeah.
I cannot reproduce it closed again.
Yeah,
so,
and it might be even like their slow connection is having their UI behave differently while you develop on localhost with a super fast
exactly.
Response time.
So things want you to be very intentional about this.
Yeah. Awesome. I love it so far. I think one question at this moment, what I would love to have is a toast message. So if you clicked add and you pop it on here, would be nice if you get the green toast success. Is this something you generally would have and do inside your component store? Inject the toaster there, assuming I don't have a global toaster.
Yeah, if you don't have a global toaster, you can do it there.
Yeah, so I can just say...
It's just part of your side effects now. So
right.
it handles... that's the beauty of side effects. You're really encapsulating your side effects.
Yeah. And I had it before. I had like in this service, I have a toast because I prefer having it in the service than in my component.
Yeah. Because what if you're writing the same email, your backend will probably complain about some of the things, like you can handle this in your store as well, right?
So here we can say after this next, we can basically say this the toast.success, email edit, and here in this one, email deleted. So this is all good, deleted, and this should transparently work. Probably very little surprises here, but just check it out. But yeah, I like this, and I think for me personally, it really helps often to have some guidance on how to do these things, best practices. So let's add another email here that's unique, and this should give us a toast. There you go, email added, super nice. Email removed, deleted, and then let's get back this refresher basically. So we're just going to get our emails, and this should bring our component back to a similar state to where it was, where we can just say, hey, delete emails, gets deleted properly, and stuff that gets added. And one thing I do see, but it's in a flash, that sometimes the loading bar pops in between. So this is kind of there you go. You can barely see it because but it's doing its thing anyway.
Yeah, and what you can do there is you can also be intentional for the loading bar. For example, if you don't have any results yet and you're loading, just show maybe indeterminate progress bar at the bottom, like in the top, just letting you know something's happening. But then if it's the first loading means you don't have a result, you can show the bigger spinner or the loading text. And this is what I showed also during the NgRx workshop, right? Depending if you have previous results and maybe you have a bigger impact, like bigger visual, the loading spinner, or if you already have some results, just show those results and letting people know that, hey, something is loading. So there's like indeterminate progress bar. I like that one a lot.
Yeah, cool. There's some more things we can look at the next one. I think we're about to wrap it up anyway. So let me open the console here so we can see error message. If you try to delete your primary email, the backend should come back with a message say you cannot. I'm not sure why this is not working.
We don't handle the failure at the moment.
Yeah, I'm just curious if this is it. Yeah, we're catching errors. So yeah. This totally it. So this might be a good thing to start off next week. How to handle errors in this situation, because now we basically catch them, pipe them into empty, if I can say it that way. I'm not sure if that's the right terminology, but that's like how I think about it. We catch the error and we send them into void.
Actually, this one is not an error from the backend perspective because it's still a successful one. It just even next we'll see if we have errors, and because it's successful. We typically try to do differently. If it's the error, we try to not give it 200 with the error. But again, this is just the data structure and however the backend is structured.
But also, I think this is a frequent complaint about using GraphQL, because GraphQL will return you a 200 even though the request is not correct. So GraphQL doesn't reflect status codes. We can get a 400, for instance, if we send a malformed request like we did earlier. We send an input that doesn't expect, That's a typical giving back a HTTP error.
Mm.
At this point, and the reason is, with GraphQL, you can do various requests, and you can have a partial request that goes correctly and another part that's not correct. So you could have two results in the same request, which, yeah, it's a downside, and it's a common source of frustration and mistakes for people that's starting out with this. Like, hey, but I'm getting a result back, so everything's fine. But no, you have to check your errors object as well and check it out.
Awesome.
So cool, awesome. So what I'm going to do this week, I'm going to play around with Component Store. I'm going to figure out if I can find some other place where I have tons of places where I can use it. So that's super, super awesome. Thanks a lot, Alex, for being here today.
Yeah,
I really appreciate it. Yeah. I think if it's up to me, next week, same time, let's check it out if it both works with our calendars. And yeah, let's do it. I'll announce it on the social medias anyway.
Yeah. And if anybody wants to discuss this live stream or whatever we went over, or have some other suggestions, let's throw up in the Angular Discord, right?
Yeah, Angular Discord, discord.gg/Angular. For those of you who are not aware, we're super happy to chat about this stuff there.
Yeah. Make sure you tag us though, so we can get the notification. There's a lot of discussions happening, so.
Awesome. So everybody, thanks a lot for showing up. Thanks for checking here. Alex, was awesome to have you, and we'll see you in the next week.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Yeah.